F. The U-Haul rumbled to a stop in front of the quaint two-story rental house, the brakes groaning in protest after the long drive. Oakhaven sounded peaceful enough. Trees lined the streets, houses had neat little lawns, and the air, even thick with late summer humidity, smelled cleaner than the city smog I had left behind. This was it, a fresh start, a new job as a regional manager for a mid-level paper company, a chance to escape the noise and the anonymity. Just what I needed. Or so I thought. My name is Mark, by the way. Just Mark. Nothing special. Just a guy trying to climb a rung or two on the corporate ladder and maybe find a little peace and quiet while doing it. Oakhaven seemed to promise both. The first few days were a blur of unpacking boxes, figuring out where the decent coffee shop was, the daily grind, surprisingly good, and navigating the labyrinthine orientation process at work. Sterling Paper Products wasn't exactly glamorous, but the pay was good, and the regional office here was small and manageable. My boss, a portly man named Mr. Henderson, seemed affable enough, if a little vacant sometimes. "Welcome aboard, Mark," he had said on my first day, shaking my hand with a grip that was firm but somehow lacked energy. His eyes, pale blue, didn't quite seem to focus on mine. "Glad to have you. We run a tight ship here, but a friendly one. You will fit right in." My colleagues were similar. Sarah from accounting, with her perfectly coiffed hair and unnervingly constant smile. Dave from logistics, who spoke in clipped sentences and stared intently at my forehead when I talked. They were polite, helpful even, showing me the ropes, explaining the arcane filing system, pointing out the best place for lunch, a diner called Mel's, where the meatloaf was suspiciously gray. It was maybe the end of the first week when I started noticing the stares. Not just casual glances, but prolonged, unblinking stares. Walking down Main Street, I would catch Mrs. Gable, the elderly owner of the antique shop, watching me from her window, her face utterly blank. Kids playing in a park would stop mid-throw, their heads slowly turning in unison to follow my progress. At the daily grind, the barista, a young woman named Chloe, would hold my gaze just a fraction too long while handing me my change, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. At first, I brushed it off. New guy in a small town, naturally an object of curiosity. Perfectly normal. But the quality of the staring was off. It wasn't curiosity, it felt like assessment. Like I was a specimen under a microscope. Then came the invitations. "Mark," Dave from logistics said one afternoon, leaning over my cubicle wall. His eyes bored into the space just above my eyebrows. "Got some free time Saturday?" "I've got this project I'm working on in my shed. Could use an extra pair of hands. Just out back of my place." "Oh, thanks, Dave, but I was planning on finishing unpacking this weekend," I stammered, feeling an odd prickle of unease. "His shed? Why?" Dave's expression didn't change. "It will not take long. Be good for you. Get to know the place." His voice was flat, monotone. "Maybe next time," I said, forcing a smile. Still got a mountain of boxes. He just stared for another long moment, then nodded slowly, a jerky, unnatural movement. Next time, similar invitations followed. Sarah wanted me to come over and see her fascinating collection in her basement. Mr. Henderson suggested a late-night walkout by the old reservoir to discuss quarterly projections, which is an utterly bizarre proposal. Even Chloe the barista asked if I wanted to check out the view from the building's roof after closing time, just the two of us. Each invitation felt strangely loaded, insistent, and always involved going somewhere isolated, alone with them. Each time I made an excuse. Each time, the refusal was met with that same blank stare, that flicker of something in their eyes before they accepted it with unnatural calm. The unease grew, coiling in my stomach like a cold snake. Little things started adding up. The way people sometimes moved with a slight, almost imperceptible jerkiness. The way conversations would abruptly halt when I entered a room, resuming a beat later with forced normalcy. The repetitive phrases people used, like verbal tics echoing through the town. "Be good for you. Fit right in. See the view." One evening, walking home from work, I took a shortcut through an alleyway. Ahead of me, I saw two figures huddled near a dumpster. It was Mr. Abernathy, the high school principal, and Janice, the town librarian, are pillars of the Oakhaven community. They weren't talking. Mr. Abernathy had his hand pressed against Janice's back, and her body was convulsing slightly. A low, wet clicking sound reached my ears. I froze, hidden in the shadows. Abernathy's head turned, his eyes scanning the alley entrance. They looked wrong, dilated, unfocused, yet intensely aware. I ducked behind a stack of discarded tires, my heart hammering against my ribs. He turned back to Janice. Her convulsions stopped. She stood up straight, her movements stiff, puppet-like. She turned, and her face was utterly blank, her eyes mirroring Abernathy's vacant stare. They walked away together, their steps perfectly synchronized. That night, sleep offered no escape. I dreamt of wide, unblinking eyes, of clicking sounds in the dark, of hands reaching out to pull me into shadowed basements and lonely sheds. The next day, Saturday, I decided I needed groceries. The supermarket, usually bustling, felt subdued. People moved slowly down the aisles, their shopping carts gliding with eerie silence. The checkout lines were long, but no one complained. They just stood, staring straight ahead. I was in the produce section, trying to find lettuce that didn't look vaguely gray, when a hand clamped down on my shoulder. I jumped, spinning around. It was Mrs. Gable from the antique shop. Her grip was surprisingly strong, her knuckles white. "Mark, dear," she said, her voice raspy, yet lacking inflection. Her eyes, usually watery and clouded with age, were sharp, focused, and unnervingly dark. "You look peaky. Haven't been settling in well?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Gable, thank you," I said, trying to subtly pull my shoulder away. Her grip tightened. "Nonsense. You need some fresh air." I was just heading out to my little garden plot behind the shop. "Lovely tomatoes this year. You should come see." "Right now." It wasn't a question. "I really need to get these groceries home," I insisted, my voice trembling slightly. Panic was starting to bubble up. "The groceries can wait," she hissed, leaning closer. Her breath smelled faintly of damp earth and something else, something metallic and rotten. "It is important you see the garden. It's part of fitting in." Her eyes bored into mine, and for a terrifying second I felt a strange pull, a drowsy urge to just comply. To go with her, see the stupid tomatoes, let her papery, strong hand guide me. I shook my head violently, breaking the spell. "No! Let go of me." I wrenched my shoulder free, stumbling back, knocking over a display of avocados. Mrs. Gable didn't flinch. Her expression remained placid, but something cold and ancient flickered in her eyes. "You will come around, dear," she said softly. "Everyone does. It is better when you do not fight it." She turned and walked away, her movements stiff, leaving me shaking amidst the scattered avocados, the other shoppers watching me with those same dead, assessing eyes. I abandoned my cart, fleeing the supermarket, the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of my own heart deafening in my ears. I locked myself in my rental house, peering out through the blinds. The street looked normal, but it felt wrong. Charged, like the air before a lightning strike. I had to get out. But how? And what the hell was going on? My mind raced. The stares, the invitations, the blankness, the jerky movements, Abernathy and Janice in the alley, Mrs. Gable's grip. It wasn't just small-town weirdness. It was something else. Something organized. Something invasive, parasites. The thought hit me like a physical blow. It sounded insane, like something out of a bad science fiction movie, but it fit. Something getting inside people, controlling them, spreading through the town. The clicking sound, the vacant eyes, the attempts to isolate me. They wanted to spread it. They wanted me. Panic threatened to overwhelm me. I paced the living room, hands shaking. I needed proof. I needed to understand. My eyes fell on the local newspaper I had picked up earlier, the Oakhaven Chronicle. Mostly filled with town council minutes and advertisements for farm equipment. But there was a small article about a series of minor tremors reported near the old quarry east of town a few weeks back. Geologists were baffled, apparently. The quarry, Henderson had wanted me to go there. Maybe the source was there? It was a crazy leap, but it was the only lead I had. If I could see what was happening, maybe I could figure out how to escape. Staying here, waiting for them to come for me, wasn't an option. Night fell. The streetlights cast long, eerie shadows. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. I gathered a flashlight, a heavy wrench from the toolbox the previous tenant left, and stuffed a bottle of water and some protein bars into a backpack. My car keys felt heavy in my hand. Peeking through the blinds again, I saw movement. A figure standing across the street, partially hidden by an oak tree. Just standing there, watching my house. Was it Dave? Henderson? It was too dark to tell. They knew I was spooked. They were waiting. Okay, new plan. Car was too obvious. I had to go on foot, cut through backyards, stay off the main roads. The quarry was about 3 miles east. Heart pounding, I slipped out the back door, vaulted the low fence into the neighbor's yard, and started running, hunched low, sticking to the shadows. The air was thick and still. Behind me, I heard a door open. A low, clicking sound drifted through the night. They knew I was out. The journey was a nightmare. Every shadow seemed to hold a waiting figure. Every rustle of leaves sounded like pursuit. I cut through darkened yards, scrambled over fences, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Twice, I had to flatten myself behind bushes as figures walked slowly down the sidewalks, their heads turning methodically, scanning the darkness. Their gait was wrong, too smooth, yet somehow stiff. Finally, the houses thinned out, replaced by woods. The quarry was close. I could smell the damp earth and stagnant water. Pushing through the undergrowth, I emerged onto a ridge overlooking the site. The quarry was a deep, dark scar in the earth. Floodlights, powered by a humming generator, illuminated the central pit. And in the pit, dear God, it wasn't rock they were excavating. It was a thing. A massive, pulsating, fleshy mound easily 30 feet across. It was a sickening collage of gray, purple, and black, glistening wetly under the lights. Tendrils, thick as tree trunks, writhed slowly from its surface, burrowing into the quarry walls. Smaller, slug-like creatures, maybe a foot long, crawled sluggishly over the central mass and the surrounding ground. They pulsed with a faint internal light, and there were people. Dozens of them. Oakhaven residents. Henderson, Sarah, Dave, Chloe, Mrs. Gable, Abernathy, Janice, all moving with that same jerky, unnatural rhythm. They weren't digging, they were tending to the mound. Some carried buckets, pouring viscous fluids onto the pulsating flesh. Others stood perfectly still, heads tilted back, mouths slightly open, as if receiving commands. Near the edge of the pit, I saw a sight that made me gag. A man someone I didn't recognize, maybe a tourist or a recent arrival like me, was strapped to a makeshift table. He was conscious, thrashing weakly, his eyes wide with terror. Henderson stood over him, holding one of the slug-like creatures. It writhed in his grasp, emitting that low, clicking sound. "It is better this way," Henderson said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. "You will fit right in. No more pain. No more worry. Just connection." He lowered the slug towards the man's face. The man screamed, a raw, desperate sound that was abruptly cut off as the creature latched onto his mouth and nose. Its tail end burrowed rapidly, obscenely, into his flesh. The man's body arched violently, blood fountaining from his mouth around the invading parasite. His limbs flailed, then went rigid. A low, wet tearing sound filled the air. His eyes rolled back, then snapped open, suddenly wide, dark, and utterly vacant. The slug pulsed once, then seemed to melt into his tissues. Henderson unstrapped him. The newly infected man sat up, blinked slowly, and then stood, his movements becoming stiff, controlled. He turned towards the central mass, joining the others. Bile rose in my throat. I stumbled back, clamping a hand over my mouth, the wrench feeling utterly useless in my other hand. This was it. This was the source. An alien life form, a parasitic colony, taking over the town, body by body. A twig snapped behind me. I whirled around, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Dave stood there, not 10 feet away. His eyes were black pools in the flashlight's glare. His mouth stretched into a grotesque imitation of a smile. "Saw you leave, Mark," he said, his voice that same awful monotone. "Knew you would be curious. It's impressive, isn't it? The great work." "Stay away from me, Dave," I yelled, brandishing the wrench. My hand was shaking uncontrollably. "Why fight it?" he asked, taking a step closer. He held one of the slugs in his hand, its slimy body pulsing gently. "It's peace. Unity. Become part of something bigger. It is monstrosity," I spat, backing away towards the ridge edge. "Semantics," Dave said, lunging. He was fast, unnaturally fast. I swung the wrench wildly, connecting with his shoulder. There was a sickening crunch, but he barely flinched. He grabbed my wrist, his grip like iron. The slug in his other hand writhed, reaching for my face, its clicking sound filling my ears. Panic gave me a surge of adrenaline. I twisted, slamming my elbow into his face. Bone crunched, his nose, I think, and dark, thick fluid, not quite blood, spurted out. He staggered back, momentarily stunned, but his grip on my wrist didn't loosen. He pulled me towards him, the slug questing, its wet, rasping mouthparts just inches from my own. I could smell its fetid alien stench. I kicked out, catching his knee. He grunted, stumbling again. I yanked my arm with all my might. Skin tore, pain flared, but I was free. I did not wait. I scrambled backwards, away from the quarry's edge, away from Dave, who was already recovering, turning towards me with that blank, relentless stare. I turned and ran, plunging back into the woods, branches tearing at my clothes and skin. Behind me I heard a shriek, not human, but high-pitched and chittering. Then, crashing sounds in the undergrowth. They were coming after me. More than just Dave, I ran like I had never run before, fueled by pure terror. The woods were a dark, confusing maze. Clicking sounds echoed around me. Figures flickered between the trees. I risked a glance back. Several shapes were gaining on me, moving with that unnatural speed and jerky coordination. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. I burst out of the woods onto a deserted back road. My car. It was miles away, back at the house. Useless. Headlights swept the road ahead. A pickup truck rumbled towards me. Hope surged, desperate and fragile. I waved my arms frantically. "Help! Please help me." The truck slowed, pulling over. The window rolled down. An old farmer type, weathered face, baseball cap. He looked normal. His eyes seemed clear. "Trouble, son?" he asked, his voice gruff but human. "Yes!" "Please, you have to get me out of here. The town, it is not safe. They are not people anymore." I babbled, pointing back towards the woods where the clicking sounds were getting closer. The farmer frowned, peering past me into the darkness. "What in tarnation are you talking about?" "Parasites? Aliens," he chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. Relief washed over me, so potent it almost buckled my knees. He didn't believe me, but he was normal. "Look, I know it sounds crazy. Just please, let me in. Drive me to the next town, anywhere but here." He kept frowning, then his eyes shifted, looking at something over my shoulder. His expression changed. It went blank. Utterly, terrifyingly blank. The chuckle died in his throat. "Actually, son," he said, his voice suddenly flat, monotone. "Maybe you should see something." Out back. In the truck bed, my blood ran cold. No, I didn't wait to see what was in the truck bed. I turned and sprinted down the road, away from the truck, away from the farmer whose head was now turning with that slow, jerky motion. Behind me, I heard the truck door open. Heard the clicking sound, joined the chorus from the woods. They were everywhere. The infection was more widespread than I had imagined. Maybe the whole town was gone. I ran until I thought my heart would explode. Ran until the sounds faded behind me. Ran until the first hints of dawn started to gray the eastern sky. I hit the county line marker, a simple wooden sign half hidden by weeds, and did not stop. I crossed into the next county, then the next, flagging down the first long-haul trucker I saw heading west, babbling a half-coherent story about being robbed and stranded. He bought it, thankfully. Dropped me at a bus station 3 states away. I never looked back. I never reported it. Who would believe me? They would lock me up. I changed my name, ditched my phone, my credit cards, everything. Started over, again, somewhere else, always looking over my shoulder, always scanning faces in crowds, always listening for that faint, clicking sound in the quiet moments. Sometimes late at night, I see those vacant eyes in my nightmares. I feel Mrs. Gable's grip, smell the quarry's stench, hear the wet, tearing sound as the parasite took that man. Oakhaven. It sounded so peaceful, but it wasn't peace I found there. It was a glimpse into an abyss, a horrifying truth about vulnerability, invasion, and the thin veil between the world we know and the unimaginable horrors that might lie beneath. I escaped, but a part of me is still running down that dark road, the clicking getting closer and closer.